Why are my views so low? Why isn't anyone watching my YouTube videos? Why doesn't anyone care about me? Today I'm bringing you sunshine. In this gloomy, dark winter weather, I'm here dressed like the sun from Teletubby. The question of like, why have my views dipped? I feel like I see a lot of big YouTubers talking about all the time. And I'm talking about this from a strictly viewer perspective. There's been a lot of older YouTubers who have kind of disappeared into the night, stopped posting, or just been like complaining about their videos not being shared with people anymore. And just like any good commentary channel does, like I said before, I like to hypothesize on why. So I kind of want to try to answer the question, come up with a bunch of different theories from the point of view of a viewer as to why big YouTubers are seeing dropping views. So something that I found that was interesting, and the reason why I thought about even talking about it, was because Jeffree Star mentioned something like this. And I'm not gonna get too deep into that, but I saw a clip of basically him talking about the fact that nobody's on YouTube anymore, nobody's watching videos, and that's really destroyed his desire to continue creating. I don't necessarily think that nobody's on YouTube. I mean, just by a little Google search, you could see that like YouTube is still the second highest traffic site on the web. I think in terms of just like the literal volume of people on this site, I do not believe that number is down. But it's not wrong to say that I have noticed a declining viewership in a lot of bigger YouTubers' videos. If we're all still on the site, why aren't we watching anymore? The first reason I think is just various eras and metas. Like, we've had a lot of different peaks and valleys when it comes to the type of content that is thriving here on YouTube. We've seen like family vloggers, prank channels, podcasts, reaction content, makeup content, all of it. I feel like at any given time, if I think back on it, YouTube has had like various identities. Like, there's a point of time when you come onto YouTube and nobody was bigger than James Charles, Manny MUA, Tati, Jeffree, and like the makeup people. And while I think people do really like those people, I do just think that was just kind of the era. And I think that in the various ups and downs of YouTube, sometimes certain content just ends up not being consumed in a YouTube video as much anymore. For example, I think the declining views that might be more prevalent in like lifestyle content or makeup content is now being consumed a lot more short form. People started doing like their skincare routine and their nighttime routine and their makeup routines on TikTok. I don't think it was necessarily that people stopped caring about the content, but definitely people started consuming that form of content short form and quick. I just don't think people cared as much about like sitting down to watch like a 40-minute makeup tutorial, like a sit down chat, get ready with me type of thing anymore. I think people were just like more interested in the look, in the makeup. And I don't think that this necessarily means TikTok is gonna like take over for YouTube, because despite the fact that the traffic is really high over there, to my understanding, they don't pay anybody that well. I don't think there's a huge push necessarily for creators to like abandon YouTube for TikTok, and I think it might be like a money thing. And I think, as well as something I mentioned in previous videos, like once we got outside of the flexing era, which was also kind of a very big part of a lot of makeup style content, people moved a lot more to like the clean girl kind of look and aesthetic. Like Glossier got very big and people were more into minimal makeup. So I feel like a lot of people were just watching less makeup gurus because nobody was doing the glam heavy look anymore. And I think too, makeup encourages so much overconsumption. A lot of these makeup gurus, because they had to review these products, had
so much makeup.
I have an eyeshadow palette that at this point I've had for an undisclosed amount of time, but I think it's too long because it hasn't finished. It takes
forever
to get through an entire eyeshadow palette. Yet so many of the makeup gurus that were famous at the time would be reviewing a new one weekly. And I understand that it's for their job and I understand that they were getting it as PR, but I think as well the move away from like enjoying flexing content and like the opulent lifestyle made people also have like a very different lens on consumerism. I feel like people took up more of like a minimalist, clean girl, I recycle aesthetic. So the overconsumption that came inherently with like being very into makeup started to be like super frowned upon. And how, especially with makeup lasts so long and can last so long that it's like so much of this makeup is being made and sent and likely going to waste. Another thing I think that happens a lot is that a lot of YouTubers change the type of content they make at some point in their journey, which I don't think is a bad thing, obviously. I think at some point, everybody's gonna wanna like grow, develop beyond what they made at one point and get into something new. But I do think that that'll create issues, not only for your audience, but possibly for the algorithm. Now, the YouTube algo is not something that I understand. I don't think anybody does. The thing is, I've never tried to understand it really because nothing's real. The earth's on fire. We're all gonna die in like 50 years, so who cares? But I do think that generally algorithms kind of rely on patterns. That's usually what they're following. They're trying to recognize what you like to watch so they can recommend you something to watch. They also, on the flip hand, have to pay attention to the type of content that you post to then know what to recommend to the people who watch this type of content. It has to pay attention to any form of pattern that it can find. Thus, I think from an algorithmic perspective, if you do a hard left turn on like the type of content you make, that might confuse it. It might no longer really know what you do and thus not know who to recommend you to anymore. And since the vast majority of views now are coming from homepage and recommended, if it doesn't really know where to place you and whose homepage and recommended feed that you should go on anymore, then less people are going to see the video. Because I remember too paying attention to a lot of Viners that I used to watch, especially a lot of Black Viners that I used to watch. And I thought about recently, because a friend of mine brought it up, where they are. They were the funniest on the app, and it's such a shame that I don't see them anymore. And I realized that a lot of them didn't ever really get into YouTube too big. I don't think that was their thing, but a lot of them went into music. But I just noticed that a lot of them blew up off Vine on comedy and then switched to music. And I feel like we've even seen like popular YouTubers have that struggle as well with like trying to have a music career or just something very outside of what they blew up on. And I think not only from an algorithmic perspective, it probably just doesn't know where to place your content anymore because now it's music, but audiences can also like not care about your other ventures. And I don't think, again, it has anything to do with the quality of music or even the quality of the audience. It doesn't necessarily even mean that the audience doesn't like the music. If someone has followed someone for comedy, for example, this whole time and then they start making music, I think it's also kind of fair to just like not necessarily be interested. I feel like I see this as well a lot with channels that blew up off of educational content. There's a handful of channels that I knew of that I discovered because they made videos like how to make YouTube videos, how to do a certain thing, how to do XYZ, how to get into tech, how to become an influencer, and that type of stuff. And I feel like that stuff was really blowing up in 2020 because everybody had a ton of free time. So they're like, I'm gonna be an influencer. But the thing with that kind of like SEO friendly, Googleable, educational type of content is that like there's a limit to how much you can teach. Like at some point you've said it all and you've taught us everything. Like there's only so much you can tell us about how to do these things. So I think at a certain point as well with that type of content, they will eventually usually end up making different content, but the people who know them for like the how-to type of videos, how to be a this, how to do this, and are not really that invested in them as a person or give a shit about the other content. I've heard a lot of creators as well complain about the YouTube sub boxes, and I'll be honest, I don't see a ton of people in my YouTube sub box. I only recently found out how you can look at the total number of people that you're subscribed to, and I'm subscribed to almost 300 channels, but most of the time when I'm looking in my subscriptions, I'm seeing like maybe 10 videos that were posted that day. And I just find it hard to believe that of all the 300 that I'm subscribed to, only 10 people posted that day. I don't buy it. I do think YouTube sub boxes now are probably optimized to recommend you maybe people that you interact with the most, people with the most views, whatever, but it's clearly not everybody that I'm subscribed to that's coming to my YouTube sub box. Like that's obvious. I think a lot of people also, outside of the declining views, also just get kind of tired of YouTube. Doing the same thing for 10 plus years is difficult. It's tiring. It's exhausting. Some of them are streamers now, which I think that streaming is still gonna remain to be a big thing for a while. I mean, pretty much YouTube is up there with the highest traffic site ever right now. So I don't think that YouTube is dying. I think the real issue right now is that YouTube doesn't have much identity. I feel like we've always had some type of trending thing. We've always had some kind of era, some kind of meta, something that everyone was doing. We had something that is like, oh, when you come to YouTube, you're gonna see this. And I just don't think we have that anymore. There's nothing right now that is popping off in that manner. It's like a bit of an identity crisis. We're all just kind of on YouTube, but nothing is really like crazy. There's nothing specifically you can point to and you're like, that's like what YouTube is right now. And I feel like that's maybe just like an internet-wide thing. And we're all complaining about that, but maybe this is good. We haven't known internet peace in so long. And to be honest with you, I feel like most of the time when the internet has something going on, it's so rarely positive. So I say that we lean into this identity crisis and we actually just revel in it. We find peace in the quiet. Honestly, I truly believe we're gonna be all right. I don't think YouTube is dying. I don't think any platform is dying. I feel like we haven't seen a platform die really since Vine. And some might say that platform was actually
killed.
So what is the point of this video and what was the wrap up? I guess the point I'm making is that energy is neither created nor destroyed, but transferred from one state to another.